zoom capabilities. And what I like about it is that it's one of the lowest cost NDI cameras out on the market. And we're going to be taking a closer look at this in just a second. But I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that this came in free of charge from BirdDog. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this camera is all about. Now, the price point on this is about $1,600. And when you see that price tag, you might say, wow, that's quite a bit for a camera. I could certainly get something that looks like this for less money. But in the broadcast and streaming world, this price tag is actually very, very reasonable with all of the capabilities that they've packed into this thing. So I think the price point is spot on. And this is something that a lot of houses of worship use, a lot of schools use, basically institutions that are doing a lot of streaming these days who are looking for some flexibility in changing camera positions without breaking the bank. Before, it is a pro work much in this number of years. It is without actually putting any camera mat, so it'll use more bandwidth, and we'll do a little latency. Other ways to get video out of the camera, all of which can be done at the same time. So you have HDMI over here, you have SDI right here, and then you've got USB. And the USB output will appear like a webcam on any computer that you plug this thing into. And a little bit earlier, we were messing around with Zoom on a live stream, and this supports the ability to control the camera remotely on that live stream. So people can pan and tilt in Zoom if you grant them permission to do so. And again, all of these outputs work at the same time along with the NDI. So there's a lot of flexibility built into this. Now, there's a couple of different cameras in the line. This is the X, that's what it's set to by default. There's also a P200, which costs a little more than this one does, but it has lower light sensitivity and a bigger zoom. So this one has a 10x optical zoom. The P200 is the way to go. And they also, on the P100 here, is a 4.7 to 40 out. Your field of view will be at 43 degrees. So when you're fully zoomed in, the widest aperture resolution and frame rate here with some dip switches on the bottom. They are really hard to see. Maybe I'm just getting old and can't see things, but what you have to do is get the switches set up to the resolution and frame rate choice that they have here on the back. It looks as though this will go from 720p 60 up to 1080p 60 with a lot of different frame rate options in between, some interlacing. It'll handle that as well. Now, you also have some choices as to how to power the camera. My preference is to use Ethernet. I've got this Ethernet cable hooked up to a power over Ethernet switch in my equipment room. And when I plug in the Ethernet, as you'll see here in a second, the camera will just turn on and start if you want. It supports DC 9 to 36 volts. But if you're setting up something in a congregation or some other place where it's really hard or expensive to run more electrical, you can run just standard Ethernet cable out there, hook the other end up to a PoE protocol, is that you're getting your video out of this cable too. So you can basically do everything. VISCA protocol, VII protocol, in support. Just hook the Ethernet up. The network controls, you can't beat the convenience here of just plugging in one thing and getting everything else working from there. Now, you might have noticed there's another RJ45 connector on the back of the camera here. That is not for networking. That is for serial connections. There's also a USB port here below it, and that you can use for bringing in audio to the camera. There is an included cable here that goes from USB to audio in and out. So if you did want to bring your audio in through the camera, you could do that. Or, of course, you can bring it in some other way because the latency is very low on this. So now what I want to do is get this hooked up to my vMix video production system. Again, this is compatible with anything that supports NDI, not just vMix. So if you have OBS or a TriCaster, it'll work with that as well. And pardon the mess on the screen here. I'm just going to go over to my input selection here. And as you can see, the BirdDog camera has been detected automatically on my network. And when I click the button here, that camera, if you look down here, will come right in. Now, right now, I've got it set on the automatic mode, but you can see, first of all, just how good the latency is because this audio is going through my camera that's connected over HDMI to my video system, but everything is just coming right in here, pretty much like it was directly plugged in. And we can, of course, tweak the camera settings for white balance and everything, which I'll show you in a little bit, and see what kind of power and bandwidth this thing is consuming. So we've got my Unify control panel here up on the screen, and I'm able to monitor the local network activity. And as you can see here, the Bird Dog camera is consuming about 144 megabits per second at the moment. The camera is set for 1080p at 60 frames per second, so that's going to be the largest data consuming mode that it's going to offer. So we do have room for more cameras on the network, as you can see here, but each one at this frame rate and at this resolution is going to consume about this much data. So you need to make sure that you've got enough bandwidth on your local network to handle it. Gigabit is probably going to be more than fine for 4 or 5 of these cameras. So I think in most cases